Oh, hello there, and welcome back to Phil Talking D20. That's right, the world's laziest YouTuber is back. Ba ba ba. Still having to do my own sound effects, so I apologise for that. But today, it's a real important topic. It's not actually a really important topic at all. There are some quite important topics going along at the moment. I think we've probably, in the TTRPG community, see, I'm a lyrical lyricist. Everyone's probably aware of the terrible fallout from recent bad decisions by Wizard of the Coast to include some, shall we say, unpalatable, unnecessary, and rather silly background to a particular species that they included, a new ancestry. They have subsequently backtracked, apologised, and kind of said, "Oh, it was a mistake, and we apologise." And it's up to the community to decide whether that's good enough. It's not my job to say if it's good enough. That's going to be decided by the kind of 5e community. We've obviously had 6e. Not that it is 6e. It's D&D done. I mean D&D 1. One D&D to rule them all. The ultimate new non-system that isn't but is and won't be and will be but can't be. That they're play testing. I've read those rules for 5e. It's not 5.5. I wasn't that interested. It didn't excite me. I couldn't really. It didn't feel that different apart from no criticals from your villains, which there, where, what's that about? That's odd. That said, if you're into criticals, come to Pathfinder 2e. We have all the criticals all the time because criticals are beat by 10, and that happens far more frequently than you'd like. As a GM and as a player, you're like, yay! And then you're like, oh! But it's fine. But what I actually wanted to do was cut through the noise and delve straight into what I think is an important topic, which is the ever malazing, ever meandering, ever infuriating, never quite implemented in an interesting or useful way hero points. Now, this applies to Pathfinder 2 and 5e, and will most definitely, by the looks of the new rules, apply to 6e or D&D done. I mean D&D 1, in the way that in D&D 1 you get inspiration when you roll a natural 20. Whoopie do. So that's not going to happen very often. And when it does happen, you'll probably forget, and it'll be a bit of an anticlimax. Pathfinder 2e and 5e have a similar approach in the way that they're like, oh, when a player does something inspirational, to you quote inspiration from 5e, then you should give them inspiration. I can't remember what hero points do in 5e. I can't really recall what they do in 2e, other than normally you can buff a die, like re-roll a dice, or you can, in 2e, for example, you can go from 0 hit points to 1 hit point if you trade in 2/3 rooted down to the square number of 5 times the volume of your hat, or something to that effect. Because that's a boggy rule that I don't like. It's like, anyway, moving on. So I wanted to kind of broach this topic by other things from other systems. The other systems, by the way, you should read and play other systems. Actung Cthulhu by Modiphius. Now, it uses a 2d20 system. And it's like Cthulhu, World War II, pulp action, occult horror, which is basically like Castle Wolfenstein, Call of Duty meets World War II, meets films like The Trench, and the recent one they did with the Nazi zombies. There's been many Nazi zombie movies, let's be clear about that. But it's that kind of a thing. Cthulhu, we all know and love. It's that kind of horror setting. And in this 2d20 system by Modiphius, I don't even know how you pronounce the company's name. I apologise profusely to them. They're never going to watch this video. If they do, they're probably in the office going, that idiot doesn't even know how to say a ridiculously awkward name to say. It is spelled Modiph, fat, IUS is the fat bit I just made up. Modiphius Entertainment. That'll do. We'll move on. They have a system called momentum and threat. Now, to boil it down to its sum of its parts, mechanically, it's very simple. When you get successes that go past the number required, they give you momentum, which is very simple. So in this, you roll a check and you have a dice pool. It's a classical system in that regard. A lot of systems use dice pools going back to the early D6 gaming systems. And you might have a dice pool of 5 dice and you roll. You might only need 1 success because it's a simple task. But you get 3 successes. That means you get 2 points of momentum. Pow! Momentum bagged. Momentum goes into a pot. A pot that all the players in the team can utilise if they need to push a roll to a success in case something's gone badly wrong. How does this relate to anything you've talked about previously, Phil? It's complete rubbish. Well, I'm getting to that. It also has a system called Threat. Threat is a pool that is the GM's pool. And the GM has this pool of threat, and they can add to it by essentially that's a similar process but in reverse, and they can use threat as the games master to increase the difficulty. So maybe that we mentioned earlier, that 1 success task, right? And you've got a pool of 5 threat points to use as a GM, and you're just really like git, and you're like, so you're going to push that 3 points of your threat pool out and say, I'm burning them. That is now a 4 success check, which is incredibly difficult because all of these horrible, terrible things have just happened in the narrative. Blah, 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 blah. Guards burst in through this doorway. An alarm goes off. Sarcophagus lid falls, and out comes super evil demi-lich. And they've all got nuclear ray guns. Okay, it's now a 4 threat check. That idea that you can, and this is the cool bit, you can buy as a player momentum by trading threat to the GM. So if you haven't got any momentum left in your pool, you fail a check, and maybe it's a super simple check, it's only 1 success, but you failed it, and that's a real muck up and you can't afford to risk that failure, you can say, I'm going to push that by buying a point of threat. And the GM goes, thank you very much. And they get that to use later in the game. But the player gets the benefit at that precise moment of that point of momentum to push a success on their dice roll. So you're like trading and bartering with this kind of give and flow of, which I quite appropriately like the name of, momentum and threat. So taking that as a principle, the thing that 5e and 2e haven't considered is this notion of a GM kind of like currency that they can utilize. It doesn't really make a big difference in 2e or in 5e, because in 5e no one knows the rules and no one uses inspiration. Actually, that's not true. Probably 20-30% of most gaming tables in 2e and 5e probably do use pretty regularly that system. It might be a bit less than that. I know that it only comes up maybe as a sideline in my personal games. Like, I'm not brilliant at doing it in terms of dishing it out. And I know that there is a lot of people that say we should definitely dish it out, and I agree. It's one of my like bad tropes as a GM. I don't give out enough kind of hero points. When I do, I think they're more meaningful, and I often will like bypass the rule in 2e and say, you did that really cool this session, but because it doesn't often need to be spent, it's not something you constantly have to panic about. I always kind of go in that kind of a situation, it will carry over into the next session for you. And I'm quite specific with that. I quite like that. So I do use it, I just could be better at using it. But what I like about this system in the 2d20 system by Modiphius is that you can barter for it. So I think it would be much better for all of us to give ourselves, like, as GMs and players, in 5e it's super simple. Everyone starts with 1 like hero point every session, and it's reset, and you carry on. You can earn more, and I think there's like a maximum of 3 you can have in a session. At 5e, I'm not so sure, but it's probably very similar. The general consensus is probably going to be along the similar vein of they should have something to use at least once as an emergency get out of jail. It's all gone completely Pete Tong. But if players knew that the GM also had a reroll every session, that they could hand up and say, okay, so I failed that save, I'm going to re-roll it with my momentum point or my threat point or my hero point or whatever lingo spingo you want to put on it. And then knowing that you could barter back and forth, and if maybe you earned a hero point, go, I know the GM's got threat guys, I know he's got a hero point he's not used yet this session, I'm going to spend my hero point that I've just earned and neutralize his threat point so he can't use it this session. Or I'm in a real bind, guys. I've just failed this critical save. I've critically failed it. I'm in real trouble. I'm going to die. I haven't got any hero points left. I'm going to have to buy a threat pool point from the GM to get this done. But then he's going to have something to throw at us later in the session. And the GM was actually bothering to use it. This is pretty important, people. Like, we have to still bother to use these systems. I think that would be a really cool, fun mechanic to put in your own table. And it's certainly something, having read this and had a kind of those little kind of moments where you're like, ooh, that's a cool system. I really like that. How can I homebrew fudge it into my game? Is really cool. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Do you use inspiration in 5e? And or do you like the new 6e rules for you get it when you roll a natural 20? Do you like the Pathfinder 2 system where it's very similar, but you, like in 5e, you get it for doing cool heroic stuff? It's really hard to justify what's cool and heroic stuff because I'm the kind of guy who goes, you're just doing your job. That's what a paladin should do. But maybe that's not how we should be doing it anyway, regardless. And would the idea of homebrewing in that idea of I get one, my players get one, and then we can barter back and forth with the kind of a resource bargaining system of I need leverage now, which I will pay for later. Does that make sense? Well, it's almost like a loan on fate. So for me, that really excites me, and I think that's got good potential to keep the idea in people's minds, because if the DM knows they've got something to use, they're more likely to use it, which means players are going to be triggered and reminded to use it, and then it's going to move forward. So that about concludes what I kind of, not, it's not the only thing I pulled from this book. I don't want to be mean and say there's like one good thing in this book. That's not true. It's a great system. But with all the talk of 6e, D&D 1, and how they're trying to approach past rules in new ways, like this weirdo critical monsters don't crit nonsense, that, I'm telling you now, that is there to create drama. That's not even on the radar. That will never get through. They put that in so people would talk about it. And it worked. I'm talking about it. I am clearly some kind of Wizards of the Coast schlepper. You heard it here first. So that's gone. That will never get anywhere. They will drop that and go, hey, we listened to our community. That's the thing they wanted us to do. And then all the stuff you never wanted and hated will still be in there because they'll be able to grandstand one thing. I'm telling you now, whenever D&D Done comes out, come back, watch this video. True story. But yeah, inspiration / fate points / hero points / whatever you want to call them, if they're in your game system, try the barter method. Try bothering to have some of that resource as a GM and bothering to use it, and poke your players with it, and then let them trade back and forth with you and see how that adds to the drama. Because burning a hero point as a player is basically just another shot of the dice. GMs don't get that unless you cheat. I mean, as if a GM would cheat. They sit behind a screen, no one can see their dice rolls. It's never going to happen. It's never happened. Surely. Surely. No. But being able to go, oh, what's this? This is my threat token. Dunk. Reroll that save you just passed. Oh, you failed? Uh-oh. Things got interesting. And then watch someone else go, what? It's just gold. Absolute gold. But having that ability to go back and forth could be really good fun. So, hope you liked the video. Sorry I've been an absolute douche and haven't been around for ages. Life got in the way. I've always got an excuse. That's my job. I don't actually have, like, YouTube global domination kind of dreams at all. Which is good, because if I did, they would be in ruins. But anyway, stay safe. Stay classy. Stay D&D done. Or 2e, or Acton Cthulhu, or any of the other great titles from Modiphius games, plus various other developers who exist who are also available. Please do try many RPGs. This is my pledge, by the way, I have taken a summer break. We always like to have a bit of a summer break as a group. I am pledging to not just run 2e all the time, because I want to try other systems. And I'm really glad that I started looking at the systems, because there's always something to make you go, which if you were raised in the 90s will trigger the memory of a song. If not, Google it. Things that make you go, Anyway, peace.